Yuri had been suspicious of Lilith, his housemaid. He found it weird for such a fancy maid to come to work at such a tiny old mansion. The most suspicious part of her is her purple eyes, which always drew him in. After realizing how Yuri had been keenly watching her, Lilith asked him if he was curious about her, but he jumped the gun, asking if she bewitched his mind. He confessed that since she entered the mansion, he can't get her out of his mind. He tells her he hasn't been able to sleep since then because all he does is think about her, making her blush. Having learned his condition, she made him some herb tea to fix his insomnia, but he still watched her with wary eyes, believing she was up to something. After all, his previous servants left after the death of his parents in a car accident, but she showed up unannounced late one evening and asked that he hire her for free. If it weren't for his skill issue, Yuri would have been fine on his own, but he had to admit that he needed someone to help him around the house. Coupled with her captivating eyes, there was no way he could say no to her. And knowing fully well that it'd just be the two of them in the house, it could finally be his chance to score some points.
Yeah, boy.
Right after she brewed him some herbal tea, he confronted her due to how perfect she was at her maid duty and asked her if she was a sorceress. Lilith then tried to tease him, going with his flow and saying she had bewitched him. But the result wasn't what she expected, as he immediately flipped, accusing her of being a witch and stating that he saw her reading a magic book and chanting spells. Out of embarrassment due to being misunderstood and praised for her skills, Lilith quickly excused herself while noting she was joking with him. However, the book she read earlier was just about housekeeping. Later, while Lilith did the laundry, Yuri stalked her like a psycho to unravel what she was up to at his mansion. He finally had the balls to ask for her goal, and while at it, he misunderstood what she said about him being cute. As a result, he rizzed her without realizing, saying he didn't need herbs to get it up when he was with her, but it didn't mean she wasn't suspicious, so he finally asked her what her goal was. And in that moment, she beamed a cheeky smile at him and told him she couldn't tell him yet. This raised his alert levels to the max that he had a nightmare, so he walked out of his room to get fresh air, but he found Lilith cooking up something late that night. The next morning, he was greeted with a feast, and after trying the delicious dishes, he asked Lilith if she had put something suspicious in his food. She then teased him, saying she had added a love potion to make him fall in love with her. The young master, who couldn't tell a joke apart, exclaimed and concluded that it must have been the reason his head was always filled with her roleplay and calling him master in his bedroom. After hearing him blurt out how he felt, Lilith concluded that it was best she didn't tell him it was a joke. Unable to clear his head, Yuri approached Lilith a while later to ask her what she meant about sorcery, but then realized that he didn't know her name. To his surprise, she called him by his name, so the clueless dolt jumped the gun, believing it was weird, and told her his late parents called each other names because they were madly in love with each other. This made Lilith flustered, and she bolted away, an act which seemed suspicious to poor Yuri. He drew different conclusions, thinking that she might want to sell his private information to some underground organization, so he had to do a background check on her. He quickly rushed to the study room, and eventually found her name on one of the books. Later that night, while having dinner, he waited for her to call his name, but she didn't. So he asked her why. After she told him it would make them closer, he denounced the reason, clarifying that his parents were madly in love because they understood each other while he knew little to nothing about her. With that, he called her by her name and instructed her to continue calling him his. The notion warmed her heart, and later that night, she stared at one of his photos while recalling how she hurriedly rushed over to his mansion on hearing the news of his parents' death. One morning, like every other, she woke him up and bought him new clothes to put on before having his breakfast. A while later, as he dug into his meal, she showed up with a brand new console she got him, so it made him suspicious since she's been getting him gifts recently. Then he asked her why. Lilith replied jokingly by saying she was trying to tame him to have his tiger for herself. But Yuri took it seriously and said it'll never happen because he'll make her beg for it. After lunch, while he studied, Lilith kept on showing up with snacks till he could no longer concentrate, so he asked her to stand right by his side. She later excused herself to run some errands, and seeing that she hadn't returned, Yuri decided to check on her, believing she must be up to something sus. So he followed her to the backyard and found her petting a stray cat. Noticing how stunned he was, Lilith asked if he wanted his Johnny stroked, but he refused, saying that he was afraid of cats, and she looked pretty while petting the feline. Lilith then offered to help him get rid of his fear, but he refused, saying he was the master of the mansion and he could handle it himself. As an obedient maid, she left him and went inside to tend to the house matters, and while at it, she saw him fumble up chances with the cat, so she brought out some fish and asked him to help her feed it while she went out. He did as he was told, and while the cat ate, a bigger stray showed up which scared the ghost out of him, but he fought his fear and stood between the cats after realizing the little cat was trying to protect him. This made the big cat back off, and the small car like him, so they became close. By the time Lilith returned, she saw him playing with the kitty, so she was happy, but at the same time wished he would play with hers. To her surprise, he pet her head, so she rushed back inside, but in the process, his photo dropped. Yuri spotted it and wondered why she had it, so Lilith confessed that she secretly kept it with her so she could always see his adorable face. As brazen as always, Yuri told her she could have the real thing rather than fantasize, but Lilith quickly rushed inside. After she left, Yuri wondered if she wanted to use the photo to hex him. Later that afternoon, Lilith came to inform him that his lunch was ready, but she saw him sketching his flowers. He quickly took her inside to prevent her from seeing his artwork and ate his lunch. After savoring the taste, he asked her to teach him how to cook, saying her dishes were better than anything he had and he'd want to marry her so that he could eat her dishes every day. Lilith's face turned red, and she suggested they make his favorite stew. They went to the kitchen shortly and she walked him through the process. After a few hours, they tried his very first meal, and even though Lilith praised the dish, Yuri felt it wasn't as good as hers, so she asked him what was missing, and she tried teasing him by saying it was love, but he quickly caught on and concluded it was how she was able to maintain the house perfectly. He then asked her how she was able to pour so much love into her effort, but she shyly replied that it was a secret. Later that night, Lilith saw his morning glory sketch in the study room and saw how he compared the colors to her eyes, calling them pretty. While having his bath, he wondered how Lilith knew stew was his favorite meal, so he planned to check on her. Shortly after, she put him to bed, and as he wondered why she was always working late hours after he had slept, he made up his mind to check up on her. Unfortunately, he was too tired, so he fell asleep while she came in to have a good look at him. Summer break ended, and as Yuri prepared for school, Lilith asked him if she could come with him, but he refused and asked her to guard the house. Before he headed out, she checked on him like a doting wife, ensuring he was prim and proper, so he told her that she was acting just like his mom did to his dad whenever he prepared for work. She got flustered and sent him off to school. On getting to school, a young noble named Tsukasa was dropped off by her servant Fujisaki, and she spotted Yuri and became worried after remembering she had heard that he lost his parents to a car accident, so she made up her mind to find a way to cheer him up. When Yuri got to his classmates gossiped about his situation, and they wondered how he was coping since his servants had quit. But Tsukasa took the initiative to talk to him, remembering how he once spoke to her when they were little during a meeting they attended with their parents. Unfortunately, their homeroom teacher cut her off by addressing the whole class. Back at home, as Lilith cleaned the house, thoughts of checking under his bed for magazines flashed through her mind, but she shook them off and wondered why Yuri was so distant. She quickly flipped her mood to the positive side and vowed to get Yuri to trust her as soon as possible. During break, the students caught up on what they did during summer break, and as Tsukasa tried to chat with Yuri, her mates asked her to brief them. In the process, Yuri slipped past her after his meal and left the class. By closing hours, Lilith left the mansion to get groceries for dinner, and on her way she headed to Yuri's school to pick him up. At the same time, Fujisaki passed by her and recognized her but didn't stop the vehicle. After school had closed, Yuri prepared to go home alone, but then he heard his colleagues talking about a pretty maid, so he looked up and saw Lilith waiting at the gate for him. He immediately furrowed his brow and wondered why she was around after all. He had told her so many times not to come to his school. Upon seeing Yuri, her mood brightened, so he sighed and walked to her. Tsukasa, on the other hand, who had already failed her previous attempts to talk to Yuri, saw him walk towards the gate, so she made up her mind to try, once more believing the third time was the charm, but she quickly retreated upon seeing him speak to the beautiful maid at the gate. So she stalked them and wondered who Lilith was before concluding that the rumors of all of Yuri's servants leaving were a lie. Just at a glance, Tsukasa admitted that Lilith was suspicious, and when she heard Lilith ask Yuri if he was embarrassed about their relationship, Tsukasa's mind went bonkers as she started imagining Yuri and Lilith consummating. To the girl's surprise, Yuri told Lilith that he was worried to have a beauty like her show up at the gate because she would captivate the eyes of everyone who saw her, which was why he wanted to gatekeep her for himself. This made Tsukasa believe that their romance was the forbidden type, noting that Yuri must be in love with Lilith. More evidence poured in as she heard Lilith apologizing and concluding that Yuri would have wanted to spend more time with her. Yuri then confirmed that she was right, stating that he had been thinking about her throughout the day and would have loved to be with her all the hours of day. This made Lilith blush harder, and Tsukasa was convinced that she was watching the type of romance she had only read in books. All of a sudden, Fujisaki startled her and told her the car had been waiting for her. Lilith then noticed Fujisaki, so she approached her and greeted her, before asking Tsukasa to continue being good friends with Yuri. That was when Tsukasa learned that the servants knew each other. Right after their formalities, Lilith took her leave with Yuri, and on their way home, she asked him about school before telling him they would have Hamburg steak for dinner. When they got home, Lilith cleaned up the house before leaving to shop for groceries for dinner, and in the process, she left her phone in the kitchen. Shortly afterwards, Yuri looked for her around the house but couldn't find her, and at first he thought she was hiding, but he later changed his mind to read and goon to some good old adult magazines. Lilith, on the other hand, got to the market and tried shopping for Sori but couldn't find it in any store, and after several attempts, she considered making something else, but then she changed her mind and decided to check the next town. By that time, Yuri had quenched his desires and was now waiting for a partner to try it out with, but Lilith wasn't back, so he got worried, and as time passed, he hugged his knees, realizing how quiet everywhere was without her around. So he wondered if she was out for business she couldn't tell him about, and he remembered she always left a note whenever she went out, so he decided to call her. But to his surprise, he found her phone in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Lilith took the train to the other town and she finally got her hands on the story she was after. But that was when she realized it was getting late, so she tried contacting him but discovered she had left her phone in the mansion. Yuri, on the other hand, wondered if there was something he did wrong and if she wouldn't be coming back home that day. But as soon as he heard a sound, he rushed to the door thinking it was Lilith, but found out it was the cat. At that time, Lilith was at the train station stranded like other folks who heard there would be a delay due to inspections. Coincidentally, Fujisaki had set out to shop for manga. As she left the store, she spotted Lilith waiting at the station. Back at home, Yuri had negative thoughts about Lilith, believing that she must have left just the same way she came unannounced. But as he tried to cope with being better off without her, his emotions disagreed with him. By that time, Fujisaki had offered Lilith a ride home, so the relieved maid thanked her and told her she had gone to the next town to shop for dinner, because it was the only place she could find the ingredients she needed. Despite the awkward atmosphere, Fujisaki learned that Lilith had arrived at their town a month ago, and she was certain she needed to be there. She drove Lilith to the mansion and dropped her off. Lilith then hurried inside and saw Yuri hugging a pillow while waiting for her, so she rushed to him and apologized for being late. To her surprise, she saw how sad he was, and he asked her if she had cast a spell on him to make him feel lonely without her. After all, he was used to being alone before she came. He told her how worried he was, thinking she would not return, and teary-eyed, he admitted that he couldn't live without her. This made her heart flutter, and seeing how serious he was, she held his hand and admitted that she cast a curse on him, so he would become lonely. She then praised him for staying at home alone by himself, and doing so lifted his spirits, so he shyly told her not to go missing without telling him again, and she agreed. Later that night at Tsukasa's residence, Fujisaki handed the young lady her manga and scolded her, saying she wasn't her errand girl. Tsukasa immediately apologized and then showed her a maid in an outfit she sketched, begging Fujisaki to try out the uniform. Immediately, Fujisaki announced she would retire and she left the room. Days before Lilith changed from her maid outfit into a butler's outfit while hoping Yuri would notice her, Lilith noted while cleaning that the reason she rushed over to the mansion was to ensure Yuri grew up healthy and strong. But things weren't going her way, as Yuri was always so suspicious of her. So she planned to get closer to him so he would drop his guard around her, and for that reason, she took her monitoring skills up a notch and stalked him around the house. Unfortunately for her, he found out, so he asked her why, but then concluded that she was looking for his weakness, so he bolted away. She quickly tried to go after him but tripped while calling his name. He noticed and quickly tried to catch her from falling, but she buried his face in her milkers and fell on him. At that point, he admitted that he needed to watch over her, vowing he wouldn't run away, nor let her go. A few moments later, Yuri frowned at her suspiciously while cleaning, and she vowed to recover her good points so he would be free with her. She quickly brainstormed and concluded she had to act like an adult. So she faced him and asked him if he didn't get so bored watching her a lot. But to her surprise, he found her more suspicious, believing she was trying to divert her attention so she could get away with her plans. With a straight face, he told her she was beautiful when working, and her lovely melons, which swung every which way, captivated him so much that he never got bored watching her when working, and he wished he could watch her his whole life. Lilith got so flustered that she quickly took a break and realized she couldn't behave like a composed adult around him. So she planned to demonstrate how dependable she was as a grown-up maid. While doing the laundry, she spotted him staring at her milkers, so she gave him a good view while saying she knew all about his feelings. To her surprise again, he found her suspicious and wondered how she knew he wanted to get to know her better, and how she was all he ever thought about. Yuri's honest remarks made her feel fuzzy all over, so she later returned to her room to DJ her kitty into calmness. There she admitted that she wasn't getting any closer to him, unlike what she wanted. And even though she knew he didn't hate her, she felt Yuri would never trust her if things continued the way they were. For that reason, she thought up ways to get closer to him, and one of them was playing with him. That afternoon, she reminded him that they were alone in the mansion, which meant they could have lots of fun with each other. She eagerly anticipated that he would take her up on her order, but Yuri, so ignorant and pure, crushed her hopes by telling her he was fine having her around. He then asked her if it was a part of her trap, and as he kept on rambling, he got confused. Lilith then asked that they play his favorite game, so he took her to play chess. There, he informed her that it was the one game his father taught him. He told her how his parents were good people, but they were rarely at home, so he usually cherished them when they were around. As they played, he recalled how one of the times when they were around, his mom warned him not to disturb his dad, who was currently working, and she suggested they play together by making pudding. He disagreed by reminding her that his dad said she should stay away from the kitchen, but she was determined to make the best pudding they'll ever love, so she stormed off into the kitchen. Yuri then snuck into his dad's study room to hang out with him, and his old man decided to teach him chess. As he pointed out the chess pieces and their roles, Yuri called his father the king and his mom the queen. To his surprise, his dad told him the queen was the most powerful piece on the board, which meant his mom was stronger than his dad. Suddenly, his old lady came in and scolded him for disobeying her instructions, so he apologized, and even his dad had to apologize for always spoiling his son. She let it slide, and Yuri happily informed her that his dad was teaching him how to play chess, and he called her the queen. To back it up, the man rizzed her up, calling her beautiful, and it made her want to try his sausage with her pudding. Yuri then told Lilith how he had fun playing chess with his dad, and as he reminisced, Lilith told him she'd like to play with him whenever he'd like. This made him very happy, and he played with her until night. The next day after school, Lilith expected some progress with Yuri, but as soon as he returned from school, he walked past her and went inside. Lilith then prepared pudding for him after noticing how down he was, hoping it would make him feel better. She imagined he would call her suspicious if she offered him the pudding, so she knocked at his door and gave him the snack. But to her surprise, he grabbed the pudding and thanked her before slamming the door shut on her face. It felt weird that he didn't suspect her, so as she walked back, knew this was what she always wanted, but it felt off. After the snack, she followed Yuri, expecting him to react, but he simply went into his room. Her mind ran circles as she thought of different things, wondering if he had lost interest in her. Suddenly, he came out of the room with a letter, and she was shocked, thinking he wanted to dismiss her, but when Lilith read it, she saw it was an invitation as his guardian to open house day, which was the next day. He then explained that it had been bothering him because she was suspicious and would draw attention. Also, he didn't want others to meet her, but he hoped she would come. After hearing him out, Lilith finally relaxed and told him she would come. She told him how she was afraid he was tired of her, but Yuri said her milkers were what he had ever thought about, so there was no way in hell he could get tired of her. She said the same thing to him subtly so that he wouldn't notice. Moments later, Yuri informed her to dress responsibly to prevent everyone from gawking at her when she showed up. She then went to her closet to look for a good outfit for the event, but after going through everything she had, nothing seemed official enough. The next day, as Yuri went to school, he hoped Lilith wouldn't miss the event due to a lack of an outfit. He then noticed some parents walk past him and recalled how his parents missed his previous open house day. When he got to class, he heard his friends brag about their parents coming, and he felt sad. By the time his homeroom teacher entered the class, she coordinated everyone and asked their guardians to come in. Yuri, who was initially troubled, was happy when he saw Lilith show up. A while earlier, Lilith had contacted Fujisaki to lend her a butler outfit for the event, and she was lucky enough to get it just before the meeting. After school had ended, Lilith walked Yuri home and apologized for arriving late. She noticed that Yuri wasn't looking at her, so she asked him why. Then he walked forward and thanked her for showing up, saying it made him happy. She thanked him too, and they walked home happily. After they got home, Yuri told Lilith that her outfit awakened his little Johnny. One time, Lilith spotted Yuri darting back and forth like a pesky brat in the hallway, so she asked him what was the matter. He then briefed her that he was practicing for sports day. After all, the hall was very empty. Lilith then chose to help him practice by cheering him up, but she was surprised to see him glued to the spot, staring at her. She then asked him why he wasn't running, and he replied that his sausage started throbbing when he imagined her in a school outfit holding pom-poms. He then asked her not to cheerlead with others watching, else he'd be NTR'd. That was when she realized he was inviting her to come for the event. The next day after school, Lilith showed up at the school gate to pick up Yuri, and once he saw her, he protested, reminding her that she didn't have to show up. Lilith then explained that it was a last-minute decision she made because she couldn't wait to see his face. Yuri said likewise, confessing that he was thinking all day about creaming her melons with his mayonnaise, so he didn't pay attention in class at all. As they walked home, he told her not to pick him up anymore, and she agreed. Meanwhile, Tsukasa observed them and marveled at their cuteness, but Fujisaki showed up and told her peeping was a crime. As they walked outside the gate, Tsukasa told Fujisaki that she needed another servant with whom she could experience such a bittersweet relationship. With just a question from the butler asking if she wasn't enough, Tsukasa's heart fluttered, and she wanted more, but Fujisaki turned her down. Later at home, Yuri tried one of the snacks Lilith made and was impressed. He then noticed her holding a notebook and was told it contained instructions she had gathered to help with his training. Lilith asked if it was okay for her to train him step by step till he no longer needed to edge while beating. Yuri immediately agreed and was happy he would have a lot of stamina for sports day, so he asked her to carry on with the training. A few minutes later, in the backyard, Lilith drilled Yuri on different sports activities, but the weakling with 0 plot armor fumbled so badly that a stray cat kept getting in his way. Lilith quickly consoled him, informing him that it was only the first day and he would do better eventually. Later that evening, his body felt so sore that he could barely move, so Lilith took her chance and decided to give his magnum a massage. Yuri was so impressed and relieved, and he asked Lilith how to make her feel good, but for the viewer's discretion, she kept her mouth shut. As the sports day drew closer, Lilith helped Yuri get better to the point that he started breaking a lot of his previous records. On the day before the event, Tsukasa went to Fujisaki while looking pained and revealed that her parents wouldn't attend. Moved after seeing the girl cry, Fujisaki comforted her, suggesting go to her parents' stead. Tsukasa then hugged her, and in the process her teardrop bottle fell, revealing she had faked her tears. On the big day, Yuri woke up before his alarm rang, and as he walked down the hallway, he saw light in the kitchen, so he went to check on Lilith, who was preparing his lunch for the big day. A couple of minutes later, she saw him off and promised to come by later. By the time the competition kicked off, Tsukasa noticed how fired up Yuri was, but then spotted Lilith in a tracksuit cheering for him in the crowd. Lilith promised him a reward if he did well in the tournament, and Tsukasa's mind went bonkers thinking she was going to reward him by taming his little tiger. Tsukasa imagined forbidden love like the shows in soap operas, so she had a nosebleed. She finally spoke to Yuri, saying they should work as a team and do their best. Inwardly, she meant for his reward and forbidden love. They commenced the competition with a tug of war, and Team Red, which Yuri and Tsukasa belonged to, struggled against their opponents. But with sheer willpower and effort, they beat the white team. Tsukasa then happily told Yuri that he could get to enjoy his reward from Lilith, but he seemed confused, so he told her he wanted to win so he could see Lilith smile. Speaking of the devil, Lilith rushed over and congratulated Yuri while rejoicing like a girl in love. Yuri also smiled back at her, and it made Tsukasa's eyes suffer from the sight. While the event continued, Fujisaki asked Lilith if it was okay for her to be present, despite the people around her. And Lilith said it wouldn't be a problem because Yuri requested it. She watched as her master aced the morning track event. During break, Lilith asked Tsukasa and Fujisaki to join Yuri for lunch, and they did so. Lilith encouraged the students to eat well so that they could do well in the afternoon. Tsukasa tried out Yuri's sandwich and was amazed at her kitchen skills, so she praised the ebony. Upon noticing Yuri's troubled look, Lilith asked him what the matter was, so he politely asked her if he had not been inconveniencing her by having her show up to his school events, and being the reason she woke up so early to make lunch. But to his surprise, she replied that she was happy doing these things. The response made not only Yuri happy, but also Fujisaki. Yuri then asked her if she was good at running, and he requested that she participate in the Parents and Guardians obstacle race. Lilith and Fujisaki took up the challenge, with the former wondering if she had what it takes to race against the other Guardians. Before the race commenced, she recalled Yuri asking her for a favor, and she felt glad about it because he was depending on her recently. She became so curious about how Yuri saw her that just before the race she stared at him and hoped she wouldn't disappoint. The obstacle race commenced, and she hurriedly took off. As the course got more tedious, Yuri cheered her on from the sidelines, and she remembered how she was the one tutoring him days back in preparation for the event, so she did her very best and won first place. Fujisaki, who was right behind her, panted heavily and noted that she should have also worn a tracksuit. This made Lilith recall Yuri asking her to dress comfortably and how the decision was the major factor in helping her win the race. She quickly walked to meet Yuri, who dashed to her and praised her for winning the race. He got confused at first after seeing her not react, but it was her brain that took time processing what he just said, so she informed him that she did her best for him. The other students got jealous of her performance because she won against their parents and guardians, so they confronted Yuri, asking why a maid was supposed to participate. To their surprise, Yuri protected Lilith and said one of Dominic Toretto's favorite lines, calling her his precious family. With nothing left to say, the sore losers scrammed, leaving them alone. Lilith, who felt elated to be raised to a noble status, thanked Yuri and asked him what he meant by his earlier statement. After all, she was just a maid. But, as expected, he praised her, saying she was too cute and suspicious to be just a maid, and she shone brighter than the other participants. Lastly, he told her that whenever she was happy, he would feel the same, and just by looking at her, he would feel his chest tighten. So he thought that was what it meant to be a family. Lilith, who fully knew what he was experiencing, couldn't put it into words for him. So the brat felt she was controlling his mind, and he called her suspicious. One time while shopping for groceries, she saw a child interact with his mother and recalled Yuri calling her his family. Suddenly, the weather changed and heavy rain fell. In the process, Lilith got drenched. As soon as she got home, Yuri rushed to get a towel after feasting his eyes on her see-through plot armor. He handed her the towel and advised her to take a bath, else she'd catch a cold. Lilith then teased him, asking if he would like to take one with her, but he blatantly refused, saying it was a no can't do until they were married, and she was so impatient. Later, she offered him tea, and when he tasted it, he spat it out after realizing she used salt instead of sugar. She quickly apologized and promised to make another one. Moments later, while she cleaned the study room, Yuri worriedly stalked her, noting that she had never made such a mistake before and he knew something wasn't right. Suddenly, a book hit her on the head, so he rushed inside to check on her, only to see her bleeding from her nose while pretending everything was alright. He quickly alerted her about it, so she wiped it off and said she was off to the laundry. As he watched her walk away, she suddenly fell, so he hurried over to her and noticed that she had a fever. Without wasting time, he took Lilith to her room and covered her with a blanket, saying she should rest and take the day off. He checked her temperature again and saw how high it was, so he started brainstorming on what to do to get the cold out of her. He knew there wasn't any medicine in the mansion, so he thought about draping a cold towel on her forehead. while preparing warm food for her to take. Noticing how worried he was, Lilith sat up and teased him, saying he shouldn't stare too much. Yuri then replied that he couldn't help but think of getting her to try his medicine, but wasn't sure if she'd like the taste. With that, he urged her to rest, but the adamant maid refused, saying he worried too much and she could handle the situation just fine. She got out of her bed noting there was still work to do, which meant she couldn't rest, but as she walked towards the exit, Yuri held her hand and ordered her to take a break while he called for a doctor. That was when he noticed her in tears, saying it was her job to take care of him, and if she weren't able to, she wouldn't get to be by his side anymore. So she left him while insisting she had to work, but then fell again. This time around, Yuri held out his hand, assuring her that he wouldn't let her go for such a reason, and besides, she was worrying too much. He then hugged her while rubbing her head and told her to rest until she was better, and that was when she finally answered him. The next day, while Lilith did the laundry, Yuri went to check on her to confirm she had recovered. There, she apologized to him for the trouble she had caused him, but he brushed her off, informing her that it threw him off if she wasn't well. She blushed, and he saw her reddened face, so he assumed she still had a fever, so he warned her not to push herself again. Due to how embarrassed she was, she couldn't bring herself to look at his face, so she ran off, but he went after her. Later that day, while she cleaned the house, noting that she had to make up for the previous day where she slacked off, she was surprised to see Yuri cleaning the windows, so she asked him about it, and he told her he was giving her a hand. He then picked up a mop to join her in sweeping, but she thanked him and said it was her duty to clean the house, promising to help him get some cream out of his sausage for being so kind. Still, he insisted it was faster if they did it together, and he had nothing to do anyway. It was his way of ensuring she wouldn't work by herself right after she was sick, and he had to spend as much time as possible with her. She couldn't resist his innocent face and pure words, so she gave in, and they cleaned the mansion together. As they were about to round up, Yuri sneezed and Lilith became worried that he might have caught a cold, and she immediately rushed to get him a coat. He then realized how she had been flaunting her milkers in the way she dressed, so he asked her about it, but she said it was for him to know the charms of a woman. He then held her hand and confirmed she was feeling cold, so he gave her the coat and reminded her she was a precious part of his family. She blushed hard and thanked him. Days passed, and as they approached Halloween, Lilith and Yuri decided what he would be cosplaying at the party. As they looked through a list of books, Lilith concluded that Yuri had gotten close with Tsukasa for her to invite them over to her Halloween party. Instead, he brushed off the subject and praised Lilith after realizing she was also very good at sewing. While talking to him, she made a slip-up about her previous mansion, but was lucky he didn't pay attention. She then asked him the color he'd like to pick, but he left it for her to decide. Yuri then asked her to come along, admitting that he wanted to see her costume because he knew how cool she'd look, and he also wished they'd do their first Halloween roleplay. She agreed, and he wondered what she was going to wear, guessing if she'd cosplay as a witch, but then he believed she was charming enough. On Halloween, they showed up at Tsukasa's mansion, dressed as a sage and a dragon. Tsukasa immediately welcomed them and praised their outfit before entering a trance where their forbidden romance bloomed. Fujisaki quickly snapped her out of it, and Tsukasa opened her door for them to come in. Inside, they saw a lot of treats and dug into them at the start of the party. Yuri learned about a lot of snacks and thanked Tsukasa for inviting him, saying it was his first Halloween party. He also revealed Lilith was their costume designer and learned that her favorite color was green. Watching the two of them interact made Tsukasa's heart race, so she faced Fujisaki and demanded that she wear a dress. With a snap of her fingers, her maids took the butler and dressed her up like a princess. For the first time, Fujisaki felt very embarrassed, despite looking so pretty. They praised her a lot till she acted confident about the outfit, but Tsukasa crushed her courage by insisting they take a group photo. Later that evening, after the party, Yuri and Lilith said their goodbyes and walked home, while Tsukasa thanked Fujisaki for participating. She manipulated the butler into thinking she really meant it, and in the process, she asked that Fujisaki wear another costume next Halloween. Days later after school, Tsukasa handed Yuri their Halloween photos, and he smiled at the pen he took with Lilith. She then asked him why Lilith hadn't come to pick him up, but he replied that she must have been busy with work. He then informed her that he had to go home in time to help Lilith with chores. Tsukasa marveled at their closeness, noting that he shared a warm bond with Lilith. Meanwhile, while Lilith did the laundry, she got a mail delivery, and once she saw it, her mood changed. Yuri, on the other hand, walked home and thought about how he had felt cozy recently around Lilith. He then rushed home to see her, hoping she'd happily wait for him at the door, but to his surprise, he saw her reading a letter. As soon as she saw him, she hid the paper and tried to act like everything was normal, but he knew she was suspicious, so he stared at her. Lilith then teased him about it, and he admitted that he was thinking about her all day in class, but that wasn't as important as what she was hiding. He quickly switched back to the subject at hand, and after realizing that she couldn't fool him any longer, she promised to give him a proper explanation while he had his dinner. After she left to make dinner, he found her suspicious for refusing to tell him on the spot, and then recalled her sad look while she tried to dodge the subject. During dinner time, Yuri noted that the food tasted bland, and Lilith spoke out, asking him how his reaction to the first food she cooked for him made her glad she came to the mansion. She then faced him and told him that it would be the last time he would see her because she had received a message, instructing her to return to where she was before she came to his mansion. It was then that Yuri discovered she had come to his mansion without permission, but he still refused to let her leave. He said she hadn't lifted the spell that made his heart race or made him feel lonely, and he didn't know anything about her, so he couldn't let her go anywhere. He reminded her of her promise of not leaving until he found out who she really was, and he confessed that she made him happy being around. With an earnest voice, he declared that she was his maid, and it made her happy, so she changed her mind and threw the letter away. He then asked her if she was sure about what she was doing, and as she confirmed, Yuri hugged her tightly, saying he was glad, so she gave him a little reward by sinking his head into her melons. One time at school, the math teacher asked the students to color a pie chart, and as he checked through their work, Tsukasa saw that Yuri had painted his work purple. Later during closing hours, Tsukasa asked him if he was worried about the assignment, but he told her that it was the least of his problems. Instead, the only thing he thought about all day was Lilith, and he didn't know what to do. Tsukasa then asked him to tell her more, suggesting that she could help him solve his issues, so he opened up to her saying that ever since Lilith came into his mansion, he couldn't take his eyes off her, and his heart always raced whenever he thought of her, and his chest tightened each time he saw her. As he continued narrating his problem, Tsukasa suffered from a nosebleed as she pictured the forbidden romance. She quickly corrected herself and asked if Lilith felt the same way about him, but Yuri said she was very suspicious because she showed up at his mansion and started working for free. Her sparkling eyes always captivated him, and he always wanted to be near her. As Yuri continued narrating, Tsukasa spotted his throbbing magnum, so she freaked out. Yuri rambled on and concluded that he might be sick, but Tsukasa realized that he had been oblivious to the definition of his feelings, so she told him that what he was experiencing wasn't an illness, but he was simply in love. Based on her research, she said it was more painful and annoying than being sick, but at the same time, it was a treasurable feeling. As Yuri went home, he wondered what love meant, and when he got to his mansion, Lilith welcomed him happily and tried teasing him, but he simply skipped past her like she was an annoying YouTube ad. She got confused and wondered where the new attitude came from, so she gave him the benefit of the doubt and decided to try again by asking him if she should warm him up, but he aired her. Like Avatar Aang. Convinced that something was wrong with him for being so unresponsive, she wondered if he had come to hate her, because normally he would have said thinking about her would have made him feel warm. She decided to try one last time, so she rushed to him and welcomed him like a normal Japanese housewife, but he simply sighed and prepared to go inside. Lilith hurriedly stopped him from going and asked him if he was hurt or if he had a fever, but he told her it was nothing, and he was pondering on something. With that, he apologized for getting her worried, and she too did the same for scampering around. She then asked him what he was thinking about, but he looked away and said it was a secret. Later at school, he told Tsukasa that he didn't understand what love was, and there was nothing that could explain his feelings for Lilith. Tsukasa then suggested they discuss it at her place, so he showed up later, and was welcomed by her servants. She walked him inside and instructed her servants to bring tea to the terrace, then she took him to see her mother. Yuri noted that he didn't like the atmosphere because it reminded him of the past. As they headed to the terrace, Yuri handed her the snacks Lilith had made, and they tried them on the terrace with tea. Tsukasa praised Lilith after learning she could make sweets, and Yuri agreed, saying Lilith's cooking was the best in the world. She then wondered why Lilith didn't join him, but he told her he sent her off when they got halfway. Tsukasa then asked if she could send her servants for Lilith, but Yuri worriedly said she might leave his mansion and work for her. After all, Tsukasa not only had lots of servants and a large, beautiful mansion, but things were very abundant there, unlike his place. He told Tsukasa what he believed, but she disagreed with him, saying Lilith looked very happy being with him. He then asked her if she was sure, and Tsukasa affirmed. It made him happy, so Tsukasa went straight to business by showcasing a collection of romance novels for him to read, but Fujisaki confiscated them, reminding Tsukasa that she wasn't allowed to take books from the study room without permission, and she would get scolded again. She tried begging for leniency, but Fujisaki walked away with them. After he met with Tsukasa, Yuri returned to his mansion and saw Lilith waiting for him. He paused for a bit, and after confirming how happy Lilith looked, he smiled at her and walked past her. Days later, his school teacher informed them about the upcoming art contest and instructed them to draw pieces to submit. One of the students then asked her what they were to draw, and she told them to draw anything they liked, but what was important was for them to observe what they drew carefully so that no matter what it was, they would begin to see its true nature. Yuri immediately knew he had to draw Lilith, so when he got home he told her about it, but he had a hidden agenda, which was to expose her true nature, and he might learn about love. Lilith then tried teasing him by striking a lecherous pose and asking him to draw her that way, and he instantly agreed. He sized her up with his look, and she got shy, but she then realized she had to pose properly, so she told him and asked him how he'd want it. She struck different poses, but he concluded he wanted to draw her the way she was. Her heart nearly came out of her mouth as she imagined him drawing her without her plot armor, but he disappointed her by having her pose the usual granny style on a chair. As he got down with it, Lilith told him that the way he thought of her wasn't necessarily who she was, but he said no matter how she looked, he would find her. He called her suspicious and then continued sketching her. Lilith checked it out and was amazed at the artwork, but he looked at it and her again and got mad, insisting she looked more beautiful than the sketch. So he brought out his eraser and ruined the work that took him so long to create. He then did lots of redrawing, and the next morning he had bags under his eyes. She then asked him why, and he told her he was thinking about the drawing. Lilith teased him, and he agreed, saying she was so beautiful for him to replicate that he thought about her throughout the night and he lost sleep. Realizing that he hadn't had a wink of sleep, Lilith said she'd take responsibility by helping him relax that night. Later that night, Lilith tried different methods to get him to relax and even offered her lap as a pillow for him, but he fumbled his chances like you lots with baddies. By midnight, he hadn't slept, so Lilith jokingly suggested she sleep by his side, and Yuri took it up to the next level. She shared the same bed with him, and he told her he wanted to know more about her, and he thought about her so much that he couldn't sleep. He felt sad because she refused to tell him about herself, despite being so close. He expressed his worries since he knew nothing about her, but she calmed him down by massaging his throbbing magnum and singing a lullaby to get him to sleep. As he dozed off, he recalled his mom singing the same lullaby and tried to pinpoint who else also knew the song. The next day, he woke up brimming with vigor, and he thanked her for getting him to sleep, despite it being her fault in the first place. She served him his breakfast, and he asked her what had happened right before he slept because he could remember feeling nostalgic. She answered, however, by evading the question, and it seemed so suspicious that he instructed her to creak the bed with him after his drawing, just in case he couldn't sleep well. Days later in school, Yuri was awarded a trophy for winning the drawing contest. Yuri had a dream where he played house with a girl with long dark hair. When he woke up, he saw her opening his curtains, but then realized she had mistaken her for Lilith. He was surprised to see her in his room since it was her day off, but she chose to work extra to get his whipped cream as her reward. His tummy growled, and she happily set out to prepare breakfast. Later that day, during study time, Lilith showed up in a beautiful attire and asked Yuri if he was sure she should take the day off. Even though he had lingering thoughts about it, he affirmed, saying it was his duty to ensure she had rest once in a while. With that, she set off into the town, and on her way she branched at a bakery and found it hard to decide which snacks to get for Yuri. Luckily, the shop owner gave her some samples to try out. As she walked around the town, she saw two kids playing. Then she branched at a cafe and wondered if Yuri was doing fine by himself and wasn't spanking the monkey. Fujisaki showed up and saved her from her worries. She apologized for arriving late and noted that coincidentally, it was also her time off. She ordered the same coffee as Lilith and asked if she needed to worry about Yuri on her day off. Lilith then learned that Fujisaki wasn't at least worried about Tsukasa and concluded that their situations were different since Fujisaki had been with Tsukasa way longer than she had been with Yuri. Lilith confessed that she hadn't fully opened her master's heart and recalled what happened earlier that morning. Fujisaki encouraged her not to be anxious, and Lilith smiled at her calm demeanor, saying she had changed from their time at the academy. Back then, she was the worst student, but she suddenly flipped, so Lilith concluded that Tsukasa must have been the reason behind it. As Lilith continued, Fujisaki quickly stopped her while feeling embarrassed, so she apologized but then told the butler that she admired her relationship with Tsukasa. Lilith asked how she could be like them, but Fujisaki told her that she seemed far more admirable, to the point that Tsukasa was very interested in her relationship. Fujisaki then advised Lilith to open her heart, and if she could pull it off, Yuri also would do the same. She got worried while remembering the time she slept in Yuri's room and said she didn't think she could pull it off. Fujisaki then recalled the time at the academy when Lilith had bandaged her wound, despite looking so unapproachable back then, so she said she had begun to change. Suddenly, Fujisaki got a lot of demanding texts from Tsukasa, who wanted to know about her meeting with Lilith. After getting spammed by the mistress, Fujisaki took her leave and told Lilith she enjoyed reminiscing with her. Before leaving, she encouraged Lilith to talk with Yuri, noting that she currently had what it took to open up to him. As Fujisaki passed by, Yuri, who followed Lilith to the coffee shop, overheard her conversation and wondered what Fujisaki meant about Lilith talking to him. As he wondered if she was hiding something from him, he heard a child cry and the mother sing the same lullaby his mom used to sing to him. Later that evening, Lilith returned to the mansion and showed him the gifts she bought for him, but he stared at her suspiciously and asked her if there was something she wanted to tell him. She didn't understand what he was saying, so she asked if he wanted her, but he insisted and asked if there was something more important she was keeping from him. He then revealed he had heard her conversation with Fujisaki, and she realized he stalked her like a creep. To clear the allegations, Yuri said she dressed cuter than ever, which wasn't fair because she was always in her maid outfit around him. So he was curious to know who she was going to meet and why it wasn't with him. He apologized for stalking her and then urged her to talk, but seeing that she didn't say a thing, he asked her if it was about how she met him in the past. Lilith immediately froze up and asked him how he knew, so he told her he remembered only a little bit. Back then, when he was little, his parents brought her to the mansion, and she looked nothing like how she currently does. He also talked about the lullaby and concluded she heard it from his mom, and at that point, she confessed that he was right. He got mad at her and asked her why she didn't tell him, and after remembering how Fujisaki had advised her to follow her heart, she opened up, saying he would think she was an awful person if she told him, and might come to hate him, but he disagreed with her. She then revealed that she had thought of telling him at first, but then decided that he would remember it on his own. Her major worry back then was the thought of her telling him and he wouldn't remember. Yuri then held her hands and reassured her that he remembered, and he would make sure he remembered everything about her he had forgotten. He then begged her not to look sad, and as they held hands, she rested her head on his. The next morning, when Lilith came to Yuri's room to wake him up, she found out he wasn't in bed and she saw him outside touching grass. When she got to him, he called her over and put a ring made from a flower. She immediately got flustered and asked him what it meant, and he told her he thought trying out something he did in the past with her would make him remember her. She then recalled him doing the exact thing a couple of years ago. She quickly snapped to reality and reminded him to get ready for school, and he told her they'd continue from where they left off once he was back. After realizing what he meant, she blushed very hard. When Yuri got to school, he greeted Tsukasa energetically, and she noted his air was different, while he smiled at his progress with Lilith. The latter received more letters that demanded that she return to her former place. After school had closed for the day, Tsukasa eagerly asked Yuri if he had progressed with Lilith, but once she realized she had overstepped her initial boundaries, she apologized but then still asked for deets. Yuri recalled his last conversation with her regarding love and realized he hadn't researched the matter. He then blurted out casually that he had shared sheets with Lilith. Tsukasa nearly passed on as she assumed he had climbed the stairs to adulthood. She came back stronger and asked when he confessed to Lilith, but learned that Yuri hadn't even done that and he already got his sausage nibbled. As they conversed, Tsukasa corrected his notion about him being suspicious of Lilith to being in love with her. When it finally clicked, Yuri dashed straight home with one goal in mind. As for Tsukasa, she was about to face Fujisaki's wrath for keeping her waiting for so long. Yuri then darted home after realizing his feelings, and when he got to Lilith, he confessed his love for her, waffling a lot about the things he loved about her, and as she was about to reply, another maid named Natsume interrupted, asking Lilith why she hadn't returned as ordered in the letters she got. She then asked Lilith to go with her. Shortly after Lilith served Natsume a cup of tea, she tried to introduce her to Yuri as her former classmate, but Natsume skipped the introductions and asked Lilith to go home with her. Lilith tried telling her how sudden her request was, but Natsume reminded her that she had written her a letter. Lilith then stated how she had responded in another letter that she wouldn't return, but Natsume insisted that her explanations wouldn't suffice because her master was a boy, and she wasn't receiving payment for her services unlike her mansion. Natsume downplayed Yuri's place and insisted that Lilith follow her, but Yuri refused and pleaded with Natsume not to take her, not after he had confessed his feelings and hadn't gotten to her what she had to say. Natsume disagreed, stating that Yuri was aware of how Lilith would fare better with her, because the workload wouldn't be much and they would work under a reputable master. To her surprise, Lilith announced that she won't be going with her, and it was her choice. Natsume got annoyed with her for choosing Yuri over her, so she said she would watch for a while to see if Yuri was really cut out to be Lilith's master, and to know what she liked about him. For starters, she asked the poor boy the theory of relativity, which was the same as asking a caveman to describe the fourth dimension. Yuri threw the question back at Natsume, and she fumbled longer than it always took me to find my pair of glasses. Yuri promised to study more in the future, and Lilith praised him, but Natsume wasn't satisfied with his answer, so she reminded him that he was broke, and a master should know how to manage finances. Although Yuri was poor, he showed her his piggy bank, which he claimed to have been saving his allowance to buy Lilith a gift. Natsume saw how Lilith fawned over Yuri, so she tried to prove that she had some cash with her, but her pocket reeked of dust. Lilith then recalled Natsume's spending habits, but Natsume protested, and she broke a lamp in the process. Yuri quickly rushed to her to check if she was alright, while Lilith went to get a broom. She saw he wasn't mad at her for breaking his property, and when she heard that he was treating her like a guest, she almost fell for his riz, but then rushed to Lilith to warn her, saying Yuri was deceitful. Lilith didn't take it lightly with her, and told her not to speak ill of her master. Seeing how adamant Natsume was, Lilith asked her why she was so fixated on her since their time in the academy. Not that she hated it, but she wanted Natsume to respect her wish. Natsume then replied with a troubled face that she was simply looking out for her happiness. Yuri then recalled Tsukasa telling him how people had ways of expressing their feelings because they couldn't say they loved someone. He then asked Natsume if she loved Lilith, and Natsume frantically tried to deny it, but he could tell. So he opened up about how he was in love with Lilith, saying it would be best if the other party knew. Natsume reluctantly confessed that she loved Lilith and said she was worried about her, and Lilith thanked her for caring, but still refused to return with her to her mansion. The next day, Natsume watched Yuri suspiciously as he went to school, and right after he left, she saw Lilith preparing to clean the house, so she offered to join her, but Lilith refused and asked that she simply watch. After completing her task, she made tea, and Natsume was shocked that Lilith could easily handle the house chores alone. Lilith then stood up to prepare dinner without resting and said Yuri was on his way home. Suddenly, Yuri showed up all sweaty from running home to see Lilith. Natsume was shocked by how Yuri could openly declare his feelings for Lilith, and even noted that it would be difficult for Lilith to answer him based on their rules. To her surprise, she saw Lilith blushing and noted it was her first time seeing her like that. While Lilith prepared dinner, Yuri offered to help her, but she politely refused, so he went to the dining table and saw Natsume casually snacking on some sweets, so he asked her bluntly if she was a maid. She got pissed and tried to showcase her usefulness as a maid, but ended up as a cosplayer. She was a klutz at house chores, and the more she kept trying to make herself useful, the more work Lilith had to do. At one point, she tried to mop the mansion, but she slipped and the bucket of water poured on Lilith and her. Witnessing Natsume's quirks once again was nostalgic for Lilith, so she opened up on how being paired with Natsume made her a better maid because she had to clean up the klutz's mess. Yuri asked them to take a shower so they wouldn't catch a cold, and the girls decided to have their bath together. While at it, Lilith apologized to Natsume for being too hard on her, but Natsume brushed it off. She then asked for advice on what to do regarding Yuri, since she didn't know how to respond to his confession and didn't know how she felt about it. Natsume then told her that she always looked happy whenever Yuri praised and confessed to her, and she was happy if Lilith also felt the same way. After a long while, the girls came out of the shower steaming hot, and Yuri asked them what took them so long. They replied that they had to take care of grown-up stuff. Lilith barged into the living room, aiming to tell Natsume about the cookie she had baked, but realized that there was no one there. She wondered where she had gone, and just then, she noticed the Christmas-themed page of a magazine, while the determined Natsume strolled majestically through the street. Now at the school, Tsukasa asked Yuri about the progress he had made with his maid, and he then realized that he had not told her anything after she helped him previously. She waited excitedly for his reply, and he told her about the love confession he made to Lilith, but the busybody overloaded him with more questions. After contemplating for a while, he told her that they got a new family member, and it made the nosy Parker hallucinate like she was high on something. Shortly after, the duo walked together, and Yuri cleared her wild thoughts about what he told her earlier. He expressed his concerns, claiming that Natsume didn't seem to like him, but after listening to him, Tsukasa concluded that she was his rival in love, but Natsume got hit by the "someone is talking about me" sneeze where she was. She then saw Yuri together with Tsukasa and wondered who she was while hiding like a stalker. Natsume suspected that Yuri was cheating on Lilith while Tsukasa was busy deluding herself about the alleged love triangle, but was soon interrupted by Fujisaki, who immediately dragged her away. Fujisaki gave Natsume a condescending look as she walked past her, and the pathetic stalker panicked after realizing it was Fujisaki, her delinquent senior. Yuri, who was surprised to see her there, came to meet her, and they left together afterwards. On their way back, Yuri asked why she had come, and she jokingly told him she had come to pick him up. She then revealed that she decided to see him one last time since she would soon leave the house. She noticed his mood plummeting, so she teased him about it, asking if he wouldn't be lonely. As they continued, Natsume tried talking about Christmas, which was fast approaching, and asked him if he knew what Lilith wanted, but to her surprise, she found him with two older boys trying to scold Yuri for bumping into them. Yuri retorted saying they were the ones who bumped into him, and even though he didn't have proof, he countered them saying neither did they. It pissed them off, and they nearly whacked him in the face, but Natsume made a cool entrance by stopping the fist with one arm. She scolded the bullies for picking on Yuri, but because of her small stature, they tried talking down on her, but she glared daggers at them, so they made a run for it. After they left, she praised Yuri for standing his ground against the upperclassmen, but then warned him to avoid such dangerous situations so he wouldn't get Lilith worried. Yuri thanked the worrywart and asked for a way to pay her back. At first, she refused his help, but then she noted she would need his assistance soon. When they got home, Lilith welcomed them and pouted at Natsume for picking Yuri up without notifying her. Yuri then walked to his room and asked Natsume to come along. Lilith wondered what had happened between the duo, but when she heard funny noises from his room, she quickly peeked, hoping it wasn't what she was expecting. To her surprise, she saw them arguing about the outfit that they deemed would suit her best. She left flustered and was happy that they were getting along. Natsume and Yuri continued the previous discussion they had earlier and talked about the Christmas party they were secretly planning for Lilith. But Yuri asked why it was a secret. She gave the logical reason, which he immediately understood, and they sealed the deal with a fist bump. Yuri came up with an excuse that would relieve Lilith from her maid duties so Natsume could take her away from the house, so they would continue the plan. During dinner, Natsume awkwardly brought up the subject, and Lilith excitedly asked Yuri how he would celebrate it. He then apologized before informing her that Tsukasa had invited him to spend the holiday at her place. His words left her dejected, but Natsume quickly came to her rescue and suggested they hang out. Lilith quickly recovered, but Yuri felt bad for lying to her. The next day in class, Yuri told Tsukasa about the Christmas surprise, and she happily joined his cause without further explanation. She narrated her deluded ideal romantic surprise that involved expensive treats and trips like those in fanfiction novels, but apologized after regaining control of herself. She asked about the exact plans, and he told her everything. On the day, Lilith, who was reluctant to leave Yuri, told him how to take care of himself like a worried mother being separated from her baby, but his reply relieved her worries a bit, and Natsume took her out. Seconds later, the doorbell rang. Yuri opened the door and welcomed Tsukasa and Fujisaki in. The female butler respectfully took control, and after gaining their permission, she tasked Tsukasa with the decorations, and Yuri made the cake. While making the cake, Fujisaki noticed some whipped cream on Yuri's face and cleaned it, while explaining how she does the same thing for her clumsy young lady, but he talked about the close relationship and love between the duo. Tsukasa stealthily took a picture of them, but Fujisaki confiscated the camera, and after their heart-throbbing discussion, she made the deluded nitwit assist Yuri with the cake's preparation. Meanwhile, Natsume panicked, because she didn't know what to talk about as they walked together, and she tried checking the internet for some useful info, but it was futile. Just then, Lilith asked what was wrong, and Natsume used the crepe shop close by to avoid any slip-up. She hurriedly went to get some, and Lilith tried to warn her against running, but the dimwit fell face first along the way. Luckily for her, her knight in a maiden uniform handed her a handkerchief to clean her messed-up face, and she came up with a topic that would fit the mood. But surprisingly, Lilith thanked her and apologized for making her spend her precious holiday in such a pathetic way. Natsume debunked her worries, and after a good conversation, they started having fun. Later that day, the duo walked together, and Lilith acknowledged Natsume's cuteness, which left her flustered. Just then, Natsume thanked her for the compliments and handed her a present while explaining the reason she chose it, and Lilith promised to use it with a grateful heart. They returned to the mansion later at night, and Natsume wondered why it was so dark, but the Christmas lights came on and the serene atmosphere left her dazed. Seconds later, she realized that Lilith wasn't by her side anymore. Worried, she rushed in to prevent the plan's failure, but to her surprise, she was welcomed with Christmas cheers by Lilith and the others. Yuri then narrated how he snitched and turned the situation around to make it a surprise party for Natsume instead. The betrayed victim fell to her knees, elated, but they welcomed her in and started the party. After the fun party, Lilith thanked Fujisaki for her help, but she carried the sleepy Tsukasa who was having a deluded dream and thanked them instead, claiming that her young lady had fun. She begged them to keep being friends with Tsukasa, and Yuri affirmed it, hoping that Fujisaki would also keep hanging out with them. She carried the sleepyhead and left, while Lilith covered Natsume with a blanket. She sat next to Yuri, and they praised each other's efforts that made the party a success. As they watched Natsume sleep, Yuri noticed the accessory Lilith had gifted to her, and began to reminisce about the time Lilith taught him how to knit when she asked him for the present he intended to give to Natsume. That night, Yuri finished the socks he was knitting, wrote a note, and left it next to her, hoping that she would like it. They switched off the room's light bulbs and left, but Natsume smirked in her sleep. The following day, the house sparkled after it had been cleaned, and Lilith took out the trash while thinking about how the work had been done faster with Yuri and Natsume's help. She admired the spotless house and decided to brew some tea for them, since they would be back home soon. Just then, a man alighted from a car and rang the doorbell. And to her surprise, she opened the door and saw her previous master there. Meanwhile, Natsume whined about the heavy things Lilith had asked them to get, but Yuri reminded her that she had signed up for it because she wanted to avoid cleaning duties. After the post-tantrum clarity, Natsume stopped the complaints, thanked Yuri for letting her stay at his mansion, his help with her confession to Lilith, and everything else. Yuri tried to parry the glory she was sending his way, but she explained how he helped her express her feelings. He then realized that the love she had for Lilith was different from the type she had for her master, but she avoided the confusing love conversations by claiming that he was just a kid, so she urged him to hurry home. Lilith, on the other hand, served her previous master some tea, and after seeing how tense she was, he told her to ease up, saying he came to check up on her since he was in the area. He asked how Natsume was faring there, and she told him about how helpful she had been since she got there. Just then, she apologized and hoped that she had not caused the master any worry, but he told her not to worry about it. He acknowledged the clean state of the mansion, even with the low number of staff, and concluded that it was special to her. He tried linking it with her past, and Lilith started narrating her past how her parents left her to get some milk, and she was passed around from family to acquaintances until she was taken in by Yuri's parents. The day she came, Yuri's mom offered her some warm tea, and she received a treatment she had always longed for. His parents explained why they took her in, and it probably restored her faith in humanity. One night, while she stared at the moon from the balcony, Yuri saw her, so she tried to hide her glowing eyes, having been told times without number that they were creepy. But to her surprise, he held her cheek and said he loved her eyes because they were pretty like the stars. The feeling of finally belonging in a family drove her to convince Yuri's parents to enroll her in a maid school, where she worked hard and graduated at the top of her class. She planned to become a maid and earn money so she could pay Yuri's parents for their kindness. Unfortunately for her, things didn't go as she planned, and she learned of his parents' death. Coming from someone who knew what it felt like to be alone, she abruptly made up her mind to make sure he never went through what she did, so she set out for his place without asking for permission. After the tragic backstory, Yuri and Natsume got back, but Natsume kept complaining about the shopping chore. Just then, Yuri opened the door to give Lilith a report, but stayed mute after seeing the strange man in the living room with Lilith. Natsume, who was bickering, was shocked to see her master, so she asked him why he was around. He gave a valid reason and told him she had planned to leave right after helping Lilith out. Yuri, on the other hand, was too slow to process who the man was, and as soon as he realized he was Lilith's former master, he stood between them, saying he wasn't going to let her go. The master laughed and assured him that he would be leaving with only Natsume. Having stayed his welcome, he asked Natsume to pack her things and follow him. Moments after, he thanked Yuri for taking care of Lilith and asked him to continue doing so, while Natsume grunted something about Yuri being spoiled. Yuri looked at her, and they both smiled, and he affirmed his intention to continue taking care of her. The happy master said his farewell and turned to leave, but Lilith thanked him for everything, and he asked on Natsume's behalf if they could come back another time, which Yuri agreed to. With that, Natsume left with her master, leaving Yuri and Lilith back to the way things were. Lilith suddenly exclaimed after remembering she had made food for 3, but Yuri said he could handle it. During dinner, Yuri kept on munching away while Lilith noticed that things were quieter with the lousy third wheel out of the way. She then brought him a second serving, while noting that she didn't know how to converse with him properly after his confession. An idea suddenly popped into her head, so she suggested they go out the next day. Yuri immediately agreed with it and called it a date. The next day, they walked through the cold city. Lilith was worried about him, but he assured her he was fine. As she showed off her outfit, Yuri complimented her. She then asked where they should go, and he told her he was fine with anywhere she wanted after all. He would be with her. She blushed and suggested they stop by a cafe. Meanwhile, Tsukasa, who was heading towards her piano class, complained about the number of lessons she was taking even during the holiday. But Fujisaki tried to explain the benefits to her. Coincidentally, Tsukasa noticed that the lovebirds were on a date and got excited. She asked if they could stalk them, but her butler reminded her of her piano lesson as they zoomed off. At the cafe, Yuri and Lilith had their hot cup of cocoa and talked about the weather like regular couples. Yuri then informed her that he would like to go somewhere afterward, and she agreed, so they went to his parents' grave to pay their respects. They laid their flowers, and Yuri talked about how he feared going there when he was alone, and he thanked her for coming along with him. He wondered if his parents were doing well in the afterlife, and Lilith affirmed optimistically, saying they were watching over him. He started a one-sided conversation with his deceased parents and assured them that he would be okay with Lilith by his side. He left afterwards, and Lilith paid her respects before promising to take good care of Yuri. Later that day, they got back to the city and gazed at the beautiful lights beautifying the streets. Yuri was infatuated with Lilith and complimented her beauty in the lights as if she were the moon's human reincarnation, reflecting the lights. She apologized for wasting his time, but the love-struck dimwit wanted to keep spending more time with her instead of thinking of how to get a job or something. He confessed his love for her again and decided to find out what it meant after she asked for it. Soon after, Lilith narrated how being close to him made her heart beat faster and declared that she adored him. Yuri thanked her. She guessed it had always been that way since the day they first met. They held hands, and Lilith hoped that the feelings would last forever. Snow started falling, so they walked home together. The next day, Yuri stepped out and saw it was all snowy, so he thought of making a snowman for Lilith, but he found out that she had already beaten him to it. That didn't discourage him, so he made another one, and when Lilith saw him busy outside, she went out and saw the snowman he had made, which represented her. After playing outside for a bit, he caught a cold, so Lilith hurriedly warmed his fingers, and when he checked up on her, he felt her temperature switch up. So when he told her about it, she took him inside to show him why. As we've come to the end of the video, drop a comment on your new favorite waifu and what you love about her. As always, stay tuned to the next recap.